27 minutes away from 2 o'clock. Today is Couch Day, which also coincides with World Homeless Day. In Australia, 34,000 young people, including 3,000 South Australians, are homeless, with 90% of those people having couch surfed. Paul Eglinton is CEO of the Service to Youth Council. He's on the line now. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Deb. How are you going?
Good, thank you. Well, for people that may not have heard the term couch surfing before, how do you define it?
Couch surfing is, in the first instance, is literally young people sleeping on a couch, but it also can be being given a floor to sleep on, sometimes a shed, a garage. So it's not just as comfortable as it initially sounds. It's also a lot more dangerous than it initially sounds, because often young people are staying at people's places that they don't know, that are people that may not have their best interests at heart. But it's also not like a sleepover, like again, couch surfing conveys to people. It's very hidden, and it can be quite risky for a young person. And
I can imagine it would make going to school or finding a job very difficult if all you're doing each day is trying to find a new place to sleep every night.
Absolutely. If you can imagine trying to get yourself to work and concentrate at work or concentrate at school, where at the end of the day you don't know where you're going to sleep, whether your toothbrush is going to be there, whether any of your possessions are going to be there, or whether it even you do have a place for the night. So it's very unstable and very unsettling, and it's impossible to connect with school or work while you're doing that.
Well, because, as you said, it's the sort of thing that you might do initially, you think you're doing it for a short time, but because it impacts on so many other aspects of your life, you might end up doing it a long time. Does it then mean that it's a pretty safe pathway, unfortunately, into more long-term homelessness?
Yeah, it is. It often is the pathway that young people follow into what we would term as more long-term homelessness. I think in our community we have this view that the homeless people are older people who sleep on park benches, but that's a relatively small proportion of the homeless population, at around 6%. But young people represent, particularly between the age of 15 and 19, represent 34% of the homeless population. And they're not on the street, they're doing this dangerous thing called couch surfing.
Well, we've been challenged to try and halve youth homelessness by 2020. It seems a difficult thing to do, but what are the sorts of things that you're asking people to do?
What we're asking people to do is a couple of things. One is to promote the idea to your elected members and to our government to put in place strategies to halve youth homelessness and address that, to enable better pathways for young people to cure their own homelessness by making available affordable housing and connections to employment for them. But at a more practical level, for people in the community, we're asking people to download our Shout for Good app from the Apple Store and donate to SYC to help them work with young people who are experiencing homelessness. Okay,
and what is the cost of that app?
It's a free app, and you go online and you pick the HYPA, or Helping Young People Achieve, logo, and you can do things like buy a young person a coffee or buy them a bottle of water, a backpack. You might even buy them a whole couch.
Right.
But it's a really fun way to donate. It's a free download, and donations come straight to SYC, and we apply 100% of that money to helping young people who are experiencing homelessness.
And we've seen some housing in Adelaide's northern and western suburbs offering young homeless South Australians safe, secure and affordable housing. And in our current rental market, that's a very big thing, isn't it? Because it's very hard for people in work to find decent, affordable rental accommodation.
Well, it's a huge issue. If you're a young person and you fall into homelessness, it's almost impossible to get out. A young person's entry-level wages are lower than the average rent in Adelaide. And if you can afford it and you're a young person, it's likely that a landlord won't choose you over another potential tenant. And if you're under 18, which a lot of our young people are, you can't legally sign a lease. So there's lots of ways that if you fall into homelessness, you can't get back out. And what SYC's done over the last couple of years is built some units called HYPA houses, and we rent those units fully furnished to a young person at 30% of their income, whatever that income is, and that gives them a safe place to live for a year so they can be stable and secure and connect with going back to school or going on to training or getting a job. And that way they can, if they get secure employment and they don't have to worry about their house for a year, they can usually solve their own homelessness problem and not go into that long-term crisis system.
Well, Paul, that might be a good time for us to have a chat to Matthew Keating. Matthew's 24. He spent 4 years of his life homeless. He's now a Helping Young People Achieve, which is HYPA, HYPA, housing resident. Matt, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, what happened to you in terms of what circumstances did you face that meant that you ended up couch surfing for quite some time?
Well, what led to that were a few number of things, if you know what I mean, such as family breakdown, mental health, domestic violence, as well as, sexual abuse, etc. So, unfortunately, I had all those combinations attributing to me being, sort of relying on my friends sleeping on the couch. Most of the times it was, living in backpacker hostels, those types of things, so not really being able to say, I've got my own house, I've got my own things, I've got my own belongings. I was sort of, going from place to place. Because at that stage I sort of really didn't know of the services out there that could help me in turn, if you can understand what I mean, such as HYPA and that. So, yeah, it was a difficult thing trying to find the help, but once I got it, they've been very helpful ever since.
Well, that's great that there's a happy ending for you, Matt, in terms of having housing now. Can you tell us about where you're living at the moment?
Oh, it's fantastic. When I moved in, they moved me in with a fully furnished apartment, which means I had all my basic necessities. I was given, there's a caretaker that lives on site that looks after us 24/7, if we need crisis or help or anything like that, so they're there for our self-care, or we've got, or we're linked in with a HYPA case manager, which actually looks at our goals and aspirations and, where we'd like to be in, say, 1 or 2, 3 years, and they will come and, put the effort in to actually get you to that stage.
And have you had a chance to get your education back on track, Matthew?
Yes, I have. As of now, I've linked in with my psychologist and psychiatrist, on proper medications. I'm also studying externally, so I'm really happy about that. And, I've got housing applications in at the moment, so it's just a matter of time and you've got to sort of sit back and wait.
So has having your own place actually changed your life radically?
I would say, yeah. For me, at the moment, it's like a second chance, if you can understand what I mean. A second chance for me to, sort of re-evaluate my life and say, right, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to be or who I want to become and, go from there. So, as I said, this is basically my second chance, and thankfully it's gone all well.
Well, that's great, Matthew. Well, congratulations on getting that accommodation. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us this afternoon.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Matthew Keating, at age 24, is now being helped by HYPA. He's a housing resident there. We might just briefly go back to Paul Eglinton, who is CEO of Service to Youth Council. Paul, on this Couch Day and World Homeless Day, can you just give us the address again of that app that people can go to in order to help young people that don't have a place to sleep at night?
Yes, if you go to, if you look for the Shout for Good app in your app store, or you can go to the Couch Day Facebook page on Facebook, and it's also got a link to that app. And when you do that, of course, you can see that fabulous young people like Matt, when we give...
Oh, Matt's Paul's phone's just completely dropped out. Sorry, it was nice to talk to you, Paul. I think that line's gone completely dead, but as we heard, the way to help is to go to Shout for Good, download that app onto your phone. Anyway, it'd be great to help because it's lovely to hear stories of, like Matthew's, where he's been able to turn his life around just by having somewhere to sleep. Well, coming up shortly, we're going to catch up with Kate Ceberano. She's almost a local these days, isn't she? Just a couple of